Alright, I'm back. It's been a while, but I finally got moved into my new house, so I figure I'll start doing videos again. Because there's something really fucking important I need to talk to everyone about. It's religious. Big surprise. It's this whole thing about atheist morality and atheism as a worldview. And atheism doesn't tell you what to do. You're right. Atheism does not tell you what to do. There is no atheist morality. It's not, it doesn't tell you what you should do. It doesn't tell you what's right or wrong. It doesn't tell you what attitude you should have. It doesn't tell you how to live. It doesn't tell you how you should interact with other people. It doesn't, atheism is not another religion. It is lacking the things that religions have. It doesn't have a central power structure. It doesn't have a central body of authority like a pope or a holy book or something that you can defer to get all your answers that you can't fucking figure out for yourself. Okay? Atheism can't give you any of that stuff. Atheism is kind of like non-flavored potato chips. Okay? You got potato chips, default, regular, non-flavored, just regular old potato chips. And then you got flavored potato chips. Well, there's not just one, it's not just like, oh, do you want flavored or unflavored potato chips? There's about 50 bajillion flavors of potato chips. Kind of like religion. You see, there's all sorts of different flavors of religion. You got, if atheism is like the non-flavored potato chips, then you got Christians are like the, Cool Ranch, and the Muslims are like the spicy nacho bag of chips, and then the Hindus are like the bag of chips with like 2 different flavors in them, or like the snack packs where you get like 8 different flavors of chips all in one little bag. It's, from the perspective of someone who's bought into a religion, and you're sitting there eating your fucking Cool Ranch chips or whatever your particular flavor is, and you're sitting there and you look at the atheist potato chips and they look different than your potato chips, and like, that's obviously a different flavor of potato chips. No, it's not a fucking different flavor of potato chips. It is non-flavored potato chips. It is the default flavor of potato chips. It is potato chips without having added anything onto it. Just like the atheist position. You cannot derive what's good or bad, right or wrong, what you should or shouldn't do, or who you should or shouldn't listen to from that. The religious people who are looking at their bag of chips and like, well, mine says Cool Ranch and yours doesn't have a flavor on it. And, there's mine has something and it tells you there's Cool Ranch in there, and there's nothing there. It doesn't tell you what's on your package, so who knows what could be in your package of potato chips? I mean, there's obviously raping and killing and it's like, no, there's nothing. There is no, you can't say there's spicy nacho chips in that fucking bag because there's no flavor. You can't say it's a different flavor because there is no flavor. It is standard. It is the null position. It is the thing before you've added any flavor to it. Now, if you want a worldview, then you can add something to the default position of atheism, like humanism or rationalism or skepticism or whatever type of world fucking view you want to put on there. That's a flavor. Now you've added something to, and you've created a flavor. I don't know what rationalism or humanism or whatever flavor you want. Atheism can be consistent with it, but it's not in itself a position that informs any of your decisions to do anything at all. It just isn't. It is the position where you have decided you're not going to have any flavor. You don't want any flavor of potato chips. It's like the old-fashioned bald isn't a hair color, and not collecting stamps is a hobby. It's the thing that you do when you're not picking amongst the different choices that are presented. You're presented with all these different flavors of chips, and they're like, all right, you've got your chip, what flavor do you want on it? And you're just like, I'm not going to commit to any of these flavors. That's what atheism is. Humanism and skepticism and rationalism, those are all things that could be considered a flavor, where you can derive what you should or shouldn't do, or how you should or shouldn't react, or how you should interact, what things should be considered good or bad. You can use those as tools to derive, what you want. And I get tired of all these people who are like, oh, well, it's so easy for me because I can just look at my holy book and it tells me the answer and I don't have to think about it. Well, yeah, it's obvious you don't have to fucking think about it, and it's pretty fucking obvious that your God didn't bother to think about it too much either before he decided to, give it to all of humanity as his revelation. Give me a fucking break. But they're always like, well, I think it's a weakness of atheism that it can't tell you what to do when the Bible says it's wrong to kill. We know it's wrong to kill because God said so. And it's like, okay, maybe you think it's wrong to kill because God said so. And my atheism hasn't given me any insight as to whether or not killing is good or bad, because atheism is fucking mute on any position except for whether or not someone believes a God exists. It cannot inform any fucking decision. It can only... The only decision that it can inform you of is the decision to not carry out what some other fucking worldview insists that you do. And in fact, most of the worldviews that are consistent with atheism never have any sort of condition where you're locked into an answer once you've decided. I don't think it's a weakness that we have to think about our position. I think it's a strength that we have to formulate a solid foundation for why those things are actually wrong. I think that's a strength, and I also don't think it's a weakness that we can just change our position. I think it's a strength that we can make our position better over time, and that we're not eternally locked in to any answer we come up with at any point in time. The answer we come up with today may be looked on as completely fucking stupid in the future, and so be it. We're making fucking progress, and that's the way it should be. I hope the people of the future are fucking better than us, because I'm pretty fucking disappointed with how we are at the present. So when someone says, how can you, it's this whole thing about knowledge, how can you know anything when people in the future are going to know things that you don't, and you're going to end up being wrong about anything? How can you be certain about anything? Well, I don't have to be this 100% certain bullshit. I can estimate reasonable probabilities for things, and I can base my judgments off of that. And that seems to, work pretty damn good. It's not 100% accurate all the time, but what it does do is whenever it finds out it's not 100% accurate, it has a way to mend itself, to reformulate itself so that it becomes 100% consistent with what we can observe. It's, oh my god, okay. And my 15-minute time limit for YouTube has been lifted for some reason, somehow. I don't know how or why. And I looked it up, and I don't know what I don't know if my time limit has just been taken away completely and I can just put 13-hour videos on YouTube or whatever, but I'm not constantly looking at the clock like, oh, I got this much time left now. So it coincided with the move. At the same time I got uncapped, but then I looked on the internet and a whole bunch of people were like, hey, I got uncapped too, but then a couple days later they put the cap back on me, and it's like, well, fuck, you know. I better not get too used to being uncapped because they're going to take it away from me. Someone's going to flag my videos and be all pissed off that I'm cursing or I don't believe in their particular flavor of chips. And they're going to flag me and I'm going to get in trouble, and then YouTube's going to have to review my videos to make sure I'm not really doing anything too bad or anything that breaks the rules, and then they're going to be like, well, your account's not in perfect standing anymore because people have lodged complaints and your time limit is back to 15, blah, 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 blah. Which I've already explained that the 15-minute time limit doesn't do shit because you just make part 1, part 2, part 3, however many fucking parts you want. You want part fucking 87, whatever. What was the other thing I was going to talk about? Oh, and I have an extra chair here just in case William Lame Craig decides that he wants to accept my invitation that I never actually sent out. What was the other thing? Oh, yes, the whole idea of you don't like the answer, therefore, you know, you're just going to not believe it or just accept what you would like to believe. Well, are you telling me that I'm not God's special creature, that the universe wasn't specially created just for me? And are you telling me that I'm just another animal and I'm not special and that I'm not gonna get to see all of the people that I love when I die and blah, blah, blah? I'm sorry that you've been deluded into thinking all that stuff, you know, is real and happened the way you think it happened. I'm sorry. But the fact that you really don't like it and that you're not going to feel fucking special anymore lends no fucking credence to your argument whatsoever. You're basically sitting there like a 6-year-old throwing a tantrum like, but I don't want to take a bath, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't change the fucking fact that sooner or fucking later you're going to have to fucking take a bath, okay? And you pissing and moaning and crying about the fact that you don't want to not be special and that blah, blah, blah. And you want to see all the people that you loved when you die. And, you know, I want to do that too. But the fact that I want it doesn't fucking make it real. I want $1 million fucking dollars. But if I went around acting like I had $1 million fucking dollars just because I want it to be true, that's going to be really fucking detrimental because I'm going to be, you know, $999,000 in fucking debt before I'm like, oh yeah, I don't really have $1 million. I just really wanted it to be true, and so I just believed it because the alternative was so unpleasant, and I just didn't like the sound of me not having $1 million. You know, that's just so fucking stupid. And I guess the next subject is I keep driving by all these goddamn Christian church signs, you know, in front of every fucking church now. We got like this little billboard. When I went to Texas, the billboards were fucking amazing for churches. They had like all electronic boards in front of their church and had like scrolling messages and all these different things popping up on the screen and sliding off the screen and all these fancy special effects going on. Around here in Missouri, and we've got a lot of churches. There's like a church every 2 fucking blocks pretty much, but they're like little tiny rundown pieces of crap that have like, you know, a steady flow of old people that go to them that sustain them, but that's about all they got. And they got the old-fashioned signs where you got to go out and change all the letters by taking them out and putting the new letters in. And I drive by these fucking things constantly, and I've noticed for some reason, maybe I've never noticed before, but for some reason this year, every fucking church sign out there is talking about, you know why the fucking 3 wise men were wise? Because they followed Jesus. That's right. The 3 wise men were wise because they saw a fucking star and got it in their fucking head that they needed to go on a fucking journey. Because obviously if a new star pops up, there's a new fucking king out there somewhere. So, you know, what makes you wise? By seeing a fucking dot of light in the sky and then concluding from that there must have been some supernatural king, God King's son born on Earth, and that you better follow that motherfucker because eventually you're gonna get to the little, baby Jesus, and you're gonna be able to deliver the presents. Okay? Even if that fucking story really fucking happened, the best you could say about it is that 3 dumbass motherfuckers saw a fucking glimmer of light in the sky and was like, duh, I think that means a fucking king was born. And then they set out on a fucking journey and they just happened to come across some little fucking kid that was being heralded as the King of Kings. Okay? That's the best you could say about it, is they got really fucking lucky and they were just fucking retarded. Okay? I'm not buying this shit for any minute. I'm just not buying it for even a single fraction of a second. Okay, moving on. Dumbass people that want to somehow divorce the Old Testament from the New Testament because they're like, well, God's a good God and He's merciful and he loves you. And, the New Testament, blah, 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 and it shows how kind and merciful it is. First of all, the New Testament is the testament that introduces the idea of you getting fucking punished forever for eternity for not believing, and that Jesus will be the one stomping on you like a fucking wine press, smashing all your blood out of you. Okay, the New Testament is not all fucking good. But even if the New Testament was completely fucking good and everything in there was perfectly fine and it never contradicted itself, which it does constantly, Jesus himself says that you can't divorce the Old Testament from the New Testament. He says it all in the, what is that thing called? The Sermon on the Mount, where he talks about he didn't come to destroy the old law or the prophets. Which basically means he's there and he's telling you all that stuff in the Old Testament is fucking real and legitimate and came from fucking God. And somehow people with their modern Christianity have glommed their modern idea of Christianity onto what they want or thought Jesus was saying. Jesus was basically, when he says he's endorsing the old law and the old prophets, he's endorsing things like slavery and owning women as fucking property. I mean, he's not condemning these things. And he while he says he's not come to destroy the law, a couple fucking paragraphs later, he directly contradicts part of the law by saying, I think it was the turn the other cheek part. When it's quite clear in the Old Testament, it tells you an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and a life for a life, and all that crap. I mean, let us not forget that part of the reason Jesus was so religious was because he too was indoctrinated into a religion. I mean, he didn't just come up with all this stuff out of fucking nowhere. He was indoctrinated, just like most of the people in the world are, into believing a certain religion that your parents have is the correct and default one to hold. I mean, in my mind, Jesus was doing the same thing as people today are doing with the words of Jesus. They're saying, well, that's not what it actually meant, or they're coming up with... Jesus was a fucking apologist for the Old Testament, no doubt. When people are like, eye for an eye and tooth for tooth and life for life, and Jesus is talking about turning the other cheek, I mean, that is an apologist answer. That is something that a fucking apologist would come up with. Jesus was an apologist for the Old Testament. He was indoctrinated into Judaism, and he was fucking, crazy enough to think he could form his own religion, which you can't say he was crazy for wanting to form his own religion because it fucking worked. But, when it doesn't work, when it's like, Waco, Texas and stuff, those people are fucking crazy because their religion didn't get off the ground and thousands of fucking people didn't start believing in it. But Jesus wasn't fucking crazy because, thousands of fucking people later just, started believing that shit. And a lot of the stuff that Christianity has, isn't even from Jesus. A lot of it was from, a dude after Jesus named Paul. I mean, Paul came up with a lot of the stuff in Christianity, Sorry about that. This new uncapped time limit has fucked with my settings. I set the video to automatically stop at 20 minutes because, I'm never going to be able to record a video longer than 15 minutes, so I might as well, even if I do go on a long rant, I'll just, I'll either cancel the 20-minute time limit or I'll, and then split the video up later, or I'll just have to end it, at the 15-minute limit and cut out 5 minutes of stuff I don't like. But now I've got unlimited time, so I can just talk forever. Unfortunately for you. But anyways, when people try to divorce the Old Testament from the New Testament, it just makes me laugh, because without the Old Testament, you're throwing out, the Genesis story, the thing that makes God the creator of the universe. We're just going to throw that out. That didn't really happen. And we're going to throw out Moses, the dude who's talked about more in the Old Testament than anybody except for Jesus. I think Jesus is the only person mentioned more times in the New Testament, which makes sense because the whole fucking thing is about him. But the second person mentioned, the second most times in the New Testament, is a dude from the Old fucking Testament. The guy that went around and just slaughtered thousands of fucking people. And Jesus tells you many times that Moses is like a righteous and just man. He was fucking indoctrinated. Even if Jesus himself didn't believe that going around and slaughtering thousands of people was okay, he was indoctrinated just like people are today into thinking, hey, God commanded it, so it must have been okay. And so he's an apologist. He's come up with an excuse in his mind that makes it okay. And why he can still follow the God that ordered that stuff, because now that God's different and he's given him, divine revelation. The only miracle that I could see that Jesus performed was the fact that he got tons of motherfuckers to believe in him and follow him. I just don't, it's hard to fucking believe, But I guess I've ranted on long enough. I've already used up 22 minutes of video, and I've covered like 3 or 4 subjects that were just eating away at me. I haven't been able to record videos since I started moving. And I put a couple up recently, but obviously I recorded those before I moved. This is my new TV room for the time being. It's living room / TV room. And I guess I'll leave it at that. From what I can see, I don't have anything else to talk about. It's not a worldview, and yeah. That's all the stuff I wanted to talk about. I will yell at you guys later. Take it easy. I will keep posting videos. If there's any particular subject that anybody's interested in me tackling, I would be more than willing to do so. But I'm also thinking about my next video being a long-winded response to some douchebag named Shock of God who keeps asking this thing about, is atheism true? And since you're too fucking stupid to understand how to formulate a question properly, I can still answer it. It's just not going to be, it's going to be an improper answer in the same context of your improper question. But I'll go ahead and fix your question for you and then answer that one too, because you're too goddamn dumb to ask a fucking proper question. But yeah, look forward to that, the Shock of God response, where he's driving on his little motorcycle, which, motorcycles to me are just fucking stupid. If people want to drive on them, that's fine, but just be aware that, if you wrecking that son of a bitch, you're way more fucking likely to get fucked up and killed from it. And I'm not going to change, people are like, oh, you got to drive, more carefully when there's motorcyclists on the road. And it's like, no, he decided to take that risk. I'm going to drive at the exact same safety amount that I do for everyone else on the road, it's not my fault if he decided to go ahead and take this extra risk of, you know, giving up his steel frame with fucking, you know, inflatable bags that stop you from fucking dying. That's not my concern. I'm gonna drive just as safe around him as I do any other vehicle on the road. It's just, you know, I'm surrounded by a fucking steel cage to protect me, and this guy has 2 wheels and a fucking piece of metal between his legs. Good luck with that. Going, you know, 150 fucking miles an hour when you stop. But, you know, you better hope there's a fucking God out there if you're doing your little YouTube video and you fucking crash your little motorcycle, your little crotch rocket. But anyways, look forward to my response to Shock of God. Take it easy, Mr. Atheist guy, out. And holy crap, I think I just stole that from Coctopus. Don't tell him I stole his ending. I didn't mean to, it was a subconscious thing. I will come up with my own ending next time.